Dr. Jane Goodall was born April 3rd, 1934, in England. As a child, she dreamed about going to Africa to see all the amazing wildlife. To do so, she took on many jobs, like that of a waitress or a secretary. At the age of 23, she moved to Kenya, where she was offered a job that she took to study chimps in Gombe, Tanzania. Jane is a primatologist, or a person who studies primates. While she was studying these chimps, she made some pretty major discoveries on their behavior. For example, she found that chimps use twigs and leaves as tools. They would dig into termite mounds using twigs and extract the termites to eat. It was pretty major considering at the time, humans were thought to be the only species intelligent enough to use tools. Secondly, she observed that some chimps were cannibalistic and would eat other baby chimps. Fun fact, Jane named the chimps she studied based on their personalities. Some examples is Mr. McGregor, Flo, and Frodo. Jane was with the chimps in the 60s, but she was pretty unaffected by the major political events going on around the world. For example, the first man was landed on the moon by the Americans, and the civil rights movement was in pretty big effect.
Rachel Carson is a biologist, author, and editor. She was born in 1907 in rural Pennsylvania. When she was young, she spent a great deal of her time in the forests around her home, and when she was 10, she was first published. During the Depression, she recorded short radio programs on marine life. In 1941, her first book, Under the Sea Wind, was published, and in 1943, she was promoted to the position of aquatic biologist in the newly created U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, where she authored many bulletins directed at the American public. One of these bulletins, known as Conservation Action, was devoted to exploring wildlife and ecology on national wildlife refuges. Another series was entitled Food from the Sea and offered information on the proper preparation of a diet including fish and shellfish to a public unused to eating freshwater fish. In 1951, her second book was published, and in 1952, she quit her job and devoted her time to writing. Her third book was published in 1956, and her fourth book was published in 1962. Her fourth and last book was dedicated to the dangers of pesticides and their effect on the ecosystem. This opened up the public's eye to the issue. Died from cancer in 1964 at the age of 57, and the Fish and Wildlife Service named one of its refugees after her in 1969.
Janaki Ammal was born on November 4th, 1897 in Tellicherry in the Indian state of Kerala. She was the 10th child of 19. Her father was very interested in gardening, which helped drive Janaki's passion for botany. Unlike many other families, hers supported her in her chance to pursue education. In her time while in India, most women didn't make it even through high school, let alone college, so making it through college herself was a major accomplishment for Janaki. She earned her bachelor's in honors in 1921 in India before traveling to the U.S. to get her master's degree at the University of Michigan in 1925 and her Doctor of Science degree in 1931. She traveled back to India to become a professor, and then in 1934, she accepted a position at a sugarcane breeding facility to help Indian sugarcane problem make a sweeter sugarcane that would thrive in India. Despite her success, most of her work was usually ignored by male colleagues. In 1939, she then traveled to a conference in the UK where she stayed for more than 10 years. During that time, she and her friend D.C. Darlington published the Chromosome Atlas of Cultivated Plants. She returned to India in 1951, and after being asked by the Indian Prime Minister, she re-ignores the Botanical Survey of India. After many other lab jobs, she stayed at the University of Madras to study in 1970 until her death in 1984. What makes all these women similar is they are all mostly underrepresented scientists. They all studied a type of biology, with Jane Goodall studying primatology, Rachel Carson studying marine biology, and Janaki Ammal studying botany.